This week in Hey the Parents, we are talking about having boys. We're looking at you, boy dads and boy moms. So before you decide who's heir to the throne, we need to chat about what it's like to raise boys. How expectations are different? What's with all that blue? Go sports? Should we be okay with boys being boys? Not on our watch. And of course, we talk about when we were younger, mishaps with our own kids, and what the supposed experts say. Because it's the three of us and all of you. I'm Michael Height.
I'm Sara D.
And I'm Mike Levine.
Kids don't come with a handbook, so we need your help.
Where do babies come from?
Where do you think they come from?
Is this a kissing book?
Mama! Mama!
What?
Hi.
I learned it by watching you. There are no rules in this house. I'm not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
We sent them to the best boarding schools. We hired the best nannies. We did everything right.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
No drinking, no drugs, no kissing, no tattoos, no piercings, no ritual animal slaughters of any kind.
Together, we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
This is Hey Other Parents, an honest, messy, imperfect show for raising kids.
Hey, welcome back. It's us again.
Hello.
What's up?
So this episode, we were talking about having boys this week. We did a girls episode a few weeks ago. We thought, let's look at it from another perspective. And with all that, we'll probably look at it from yet another perspective down the road. So it has been, it's been snowy in the Northeast. I'm sure there's lots of snow all over the place, but it's been nice. We haven't had snow in a while. And this weekend, my kitties got outside. And once the snow stopped and I did the shoveling, it was time to get their snow pants on and their paraphernalia.
That's always fun.
You know what, man? I'll tell you, like, it is so easy to jump into grumpy dad mode because, like, once you shovel, you're like, I'm done. Like, your gloves are wet, your pants are wet, the jacket's a little wet. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't need these again until at least tomorrow because I'm not going back out there. And then the kids walk up to you with, like, slightly like pouty faces because they want to go outside. And you're like, of course I want to go outside in my wet gloves. I can't wait. This will be fun. So my wife and I, we got them all ready to go outside, got all our snow pants that we've continuing this process of like hand-me-down snow pants, found the gloves, found the earmuffs, got the hats. So we get them outside and Jacob and Ethan get this idea that they're going to use this little snow sled that we have. It's like a little plastic, like rafty looking thing. And they're going to make this ramp that Noah's going to go after to go over. So they build this like this rampy thing and they're like pulling him around. It was a lot of fun. He had a good time. He was like, I think he was a little apprehensive at first, but they pulled him and then they got him to like the top of the ramp and then they pulled and he went flying. I think he had such a great time. But I think after once he was like, all right, I'm good. I don't want to risk any personal injuries. So our friend Michelle and Frank, they gave us a while ago. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these. They're these like water bottles, like the spray bottles, but you basically put in like color, like I guess it's like food dye.
Yeah.
And you can like spray the snow. And why that's fun, I don't know, but I was jealous. I wanted to spray the snow. There's something about like just coming, like, I don't know. I guess it's like you're not going to get in trouble. You get color everywhere, but he had a lot of fun with that. That's kind of fun. So if you ever see that like at Five Below.
Quick question. Did you take the opportunity to
sit on the porch and drink Diet Coke? Yes, I did.
To show them how to shovel?
You know what? I did. I actually did, which is funny because last week's episode was about chores. I did. So Jacob, I summoned. I sound like a genie. I asked him to come outside with me, and I had him do like like a smaller amount. So like he did like the stoop of our house is like on a couple steps. So I had him kind of like just take the snow and kind of push it off there onto the side. And I did like the driveway and then like the path leading to the neighbors and stuff. Right. But it's funny because like I totally heard my dad in that moment. He was like, "Don't pick up the snow. What are you throwing it? You're gonna hurt your back. Don't raise your shovel over your head. Bend with your knees."
Oh yeah.
I instantly became like. But still, like I couldn't even believe my delivery was lacking. So this was like the moment of like, wow, now that you're a boy, this episode is all about that, I guess. Apparently this episode's about boys, snow, and shovels, I guess. I don't know. But it was it was definitely interesting having him out there, and I really appreciated it. But I don't know if it was like a bad omen, because when we were in the middle of shoveling, the handle broke on the shovel I was using.
Oh, man.
So anyway, I had to use like the nub and the rest of the shovel, but we got the job done. As I anticipate with snow in New York, this is probably, I should have even jinxed it. This is probably the last snow we're going to get this season anyway, so who knows?
Yeah, that's very true.
That's probably true. So speaking of boys and shovels and Diet Coke, this episode is all about raising boys. I don't know where the Diet Coke part fits in, but raising boys. And this episode is all about it. And it's you know, we have an article that we're going to tap into this week. Kind of like give us some positive resources and how to handle some of those things that people kind of always think about, with like try to, you know, raise good boys and that grow up to men and this, that, and the other, and how to make it so that, you know, you feel good about your effort as parents and what you bring into this world. But, you know, oh wait, hold on. Pulling on up is Doc Brown with the 88 miles per hour time machine because we are rolling back in town. I know you like how I like totally take that because every moment you guys get, you're like, it's nuts. Wayne's World, man. It's Wayne's World. So let me tell you, going back in time, and I'm just thinking, like, it's really an interesting thing to think about, like, you know, perception versus, like, you know, what your parents went through. But I distinctly remember a couple things of growing up, and one of them had to do with sports. And in this podcast, you may have heard it. Sarah and I joke all the time of my lack of knowledge of sports because it is quite fitting that I am probably the least knowledgeable sports person on this planet. But the thing is, I remember growing up is my parents always tried to get me into like sporty activities. And it was almost like they went down the list. Like we never quite got to archery, but I feel like we did everything. And it was like, it always ended. It was like soccer. Soccer was like, get out there, play soccer. And I remember distinctly running and like not getting anywhere and just like constantly running back and forth. I probably should have just stayed in my position and just crying. And my parents were like, get out there. And it always ended in one thing, a Slurpee, which is a wonderful thing. Now you know I have an affinity to 7-Eleven. And then, you know, T-ball was great until they took the T away, then turned into baseball, and that was hard. And I remember once I went out to be to try out, you know, because they had this thing where they're like, does anyone want to try out to be the pitcher? And so like, you can just try it. I remember winging the ball and almost hitting a parent on the side.
Awesome.
So outfield, left outfield for me, baby. So, but I did eventually get into swimming, and swimming became like my thing, and I swam for years. And it's like, it's a wacky thing because like swimming is, you know, another sport that's a little bit like, you know, back in the time, you know, catching a lot of slack for the bathing suits and stuff like that you wore. But I love swimming. But, you know, I remember it was a different path for my sister. My sister was like, it must be like the Sara D version of growing up. It was like, you can do ballet, you can do dance, you could do, you know, it wasn't like, you're going to go out there. Oh, I did play basketball too. That was also a disaster. But, you know, a lot of those things. But did you guys have this experience? Like, I know, Sarah, we talked about this last episode. Like, did your brother, was he like ushered into like sporty things growing up?
I don't know if he was like ushered into it. I just know like for the sports, I think it was like my dad loved baseball. Anthony went into it, and that was kind of like it. That was just his thing. He loved baseball. Baseball was his sport, and handball. I don't think he actually really ever played basketball or like football, like as a pickup game or anything like that. He was never in the league, so.
Oh, but handball, that's like that's a very like manly man's kind of thing, right? You go to the park, you do like, you talk smack, you know.
Exactly.
Did he play with your dad? Did he go with your dad to the park and stuff?
No, that was a teenage year thing, you know, like hacky sack and like handball. And you go in there and, you know, so you talk to schmack and stuff like that. I never saw him play handball because I wasn't allowed out to the park.
Oh man!
Just playing hacky sack in a room by herself up against the wall, like waving
by myself
goodbye.
as a teenager.
Oh, no. It could have been a Raisin Boys. This is more like therapy for Sarah episode.
It really is.
Oh no! She's probably like bouncing.
My nose are pressed against the window.
No one will ever see me do this ever.
I'm like, hey world.
So what about you, Mike? Were you like, was it like baseball or bust, or what was it like growing up?
I wasn't really like a sports guy, I think, like you, but I think I was kind of like my mom was just looking to put us in stuff. So she's like, oh, why don't you try sports? But I think there were some other things like I wanted to try and kind of figure out. But just sports kind of wound up being the route that we chose. And then we all did baseball. My brothers and I did baseball. I did hockey. I really wound up liking hockey. But, you know, baseball kind of killed it for us with the sports because it's like you're in the outfield, you're picking dandelions, and
you saw me.
Yeah. And then it's funny because I think about, you know, now, and I know we're talking about the past, and we'll talk about this as we get on, but it's like, oh man, did I push sports on my son too? Like, you know, did I push baseball on Lucas? You know, I don't know. It kind of, I guess they say history repeats itself, I guess, you know.
you think as a parent, you almost feel this pressure of like having to at least have your child experience a number of things.
Yeah.
And like whether they do it or not, just like the experience of it. The problem is that with sports and a lot of these like types of activities, you can't really like sign them up for like one day. You kind of have to sign them up for a season.
Like a sampler.
But they're there's a sampler pack. Like they should do like a buffet, like a flight,
Yeah.
a flight of sports. Of course, when you say that out loud, you realize that I'm not the sporting guy. Would you like to sit down for your sport flight? So but when it comes to that, I mean, it's like the main ones that you always kind of like think about are like baseball, basketball, right? And like, soccer. Those are like the main ones that I feel like every parent feels some sort of pressure to have their kids do.
Yeah, I think like the main thing is to just get them involved in something. And I think that's what my mom was trying to do back in the day. And I think that's what we try to do as parents. But I think some of us get wrapped up in like, well, I did baseball when I was younger, so my son should be the best baseball player, or...
Yeah, or worse, when the parent is like wasn't successful, but they somehow want to live vicariously as a second shot for themselves.
Yes.
But do you think, like, as a parent, like, do you think the kids really learn those lessons when they're young?
You build it, right? You build it when they're young at this age. Yeah, they may not learn the lesson fully, but they get a sense of it, and they get a sense on their level. And then as they get older and as they progress and they get more of an understanding of what teamwork and adversities and winnings and things like that, so that they can be successful in their own lives. And I think that's what happens. I don't know.
I think so too. I think like a lot of times, like when they're little, you're trying to learn all the skills, and I don't know about the teamwork stuff, but like you think that you're gonna raise this kid and you like something, that they're gonna like it as well, and you have to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, Taylor actually, Ellie's been really taking off on basketball, and Taylor was like a basketball star when she was younger. Not like a basketball star, but like, she enjoyed it. She loved the sport, and
that's why you've been playing basketball outside your house.
Yeah, it's been crazy. But so Ellie's been really taking off with it, and I think Taylor, her and I had this conversation of like, hey, Ellie's her own little girl. She's going to do her own thing, Mm-hmm. So like, let her just learn and love the sport as it is. Let's not force it on her, So I think that's what we need to realize as with our boys, with our children, with anybody. Like, we can't kind of infringe our own ideas of how they should play, and just let them play and do what they want.
You podcast, you little child. No, so the thing that I was going to mention too, that besides like sports, because there's so many other different aspects of it, is another topic that kind of comes to mind is, and it sounds like such a silly thing, but stuffed animals and like bedding and like the things that, that are always like, like with the world is like, well, after a certain age, boys can't play with those toys or stuffed animals. I distinctly remember I had like pound puppies, and I had like, all my stuffed animal tiger and all this stuff. And I remember distinctly, like, I think I must have been in like maybe second grade. And I remember my parents kind of like, I think they must have just waited till like I had the flu or I was sick or something with something like a big sickness. And that was the excuse to like take all of the stuffed animals off my bed, like quasi permanently. and that was it. And it was like, now that you're in second grade, you're a real man. No, but it was, there's this like, I hate to say it, but there's like, I mean, my parents were only doing what they thought was best, obviously. But I feel like there's this like nervous energy that you're going to grow up, like you're going to raise a child to be like kind of girly or sissy if it's a boy. And that's like, maybe that was a belief back when we were younger, but I could have been fine with having my stuffed animals not taken from my from my hands when I was little.
Aww.
Did you remember that? Did something that happen for you or Sarah for your brother? Did you guys remember?
I can think of my brother cry. So I can think of one story actually. Okay, so they're like, oh, stop being a crybaby. He's always crying, whatever. And it was not the time that I punched a boy for my brother. But it was the time that the next door neighbor, Tommy, he hit me with a Nerf baseball bat right in the face. And I cried.
Oh my God.
And so I went back crying to my, like we had Angelina. She was like a nanny or like a helper for my mom, like with us. And I guess my mom was out like shopping or something. And I'm like, Angelina, Tommy hit me. And she's like, where's your brother? And I was like, I don't know. Like, my face is like on fire. So she gets Anthony and she's like, you're the boy. You go back there. She like handed him a bat. She goes, and you hit Tommy right back. And my brother started crying because he didn't want to hit Tommy, you know?
Yeah.
And I was crying because I was like, what the heck? Like, I still need some ice, Angelina.
You're going to go out there and you're going to punch Tommy in the face.
So I don't think Anthony ever went over to Tommy. I think he just cried, and I think my mom came just in time, and she was like, "No, we can't do that," you know. Man, Angelina was trying to teach him a lesson in life there. Defend your sister.
Well,
when in doubt, punch him in the face.
It's cool.
Probably call like CPS. The thing that's so crazy is also like I think we talked about this too with like how girls you know, raising girls. There was a conversation about like the clothes are in the store and like what's available and like what you wear. And I think for another thing that to think about too that I remember is what was on television, the stuff you were watching. And I remember distinctly, you know, watching He-Man, and He-Man is now it's so funny to watch the old episodes because like their animation, like the way they run is just so like janky. But I remember like soon, I don't remember, it was definitely the peak He-Man time of my childhood. She-Ra came out. And I remember She-Ra was like, whatever. It's just like He-Man's sister, another, you know, it was like part of the metaverse. So anyway, so you go to, so the She-Ra becomes a big thing. And then I wanted to like go see the She-Ra movie in a movie theater. And I remember like nervous to ask because it was sounding so girly, you know? And it was like not a big deal because everyone was watching then, but like there was definitely this feeling that surrounded it, which is so wild, you know?
No, I get that because even when I was younger too, like I wanted to watch, I don't know why, 90210. Like I watched 90210. I don't know if you remember that.
Hold up. No, you're right. So, no, listen to this, check it out. Wait, when you were younger, when were you watching this? When it was live?
Yeah, I guess when
For
it was
real?
live. Yeah.
Yo, check it out. I remember
Or
my mom and my
reruns.
sister, right? So they would watch 90210, and then I was told like I had to leave the room. So like I would go. So our house, my parents' house was a split. They would watch 90210 in the middle level, and I would sneak to the edge of the stairs, and they couldn't see me. And I put my pillow down and my blanket, and I sat there on my elbows, and I proceeded to watch all the episodes of 90210 that they were watching. I'm like, this is some good knowledge to find out what's going on, you know?
I'm like, should I be
man.
should I be watching football or should I be watching Brandon? I don't know.
I mean, you look at them and you're like,
Dreamy.
I don't know. People, yeah, seriously. They're like, man, teenagers in California sure look older than the teenagers in New York.
Yeah. Didn't
Like
think about
Ian,
that.
whatever, was like 35 and he was like 18.
Oh
It's
my
crazy.
God. Yeah, I know.
I think as a young boy, you know, I think our kids and raising young boys, I think you need to make them aware that it's okay to like, you know, watch all these things and do all these things. And there's no specific rule book for how to be a boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there is. You go out there and you no kidding. So that is accurate. But at the same regard, yes, it is okay to do all these things, the things that we joke about, right? It is okay to be in sports. It's okay to like have hobbies, of course. I have an idea. Well, let's take a look at this article because there's some really great things in this article, and we are going to jump into that for a little bit, and we'll talk about our present, see how it relates. Does that work for you guys?
That
sounds
good. Let's go with the flow.
So there's an article this week, and it's kind of an interesting one. The article's called "Raising Boys to Be Good Men. Here's one way to do it." So it's on CNN. You know, some of the things that we even saw in the article were like, oh, what's your perspective on this? What's your perspective on this? And we were kind of thinking about like how we maybe have just different viewpoints. So one of the main things in this article, which I kind of liked, I think I brought this up maybe with a food episode, was admitting when you mess up. And it's very easy to like do as I say, not as I do in a lot of these circumstances. But one of the things in this article, which I liked about, was that. And I almost think about like when we were talking about cooking and teaching our kids stuff, how I messed up cooking meatballs one night and the kids laugh about it. And it was like really nasty, didn't come out good. And I gave them peanut butter and jelly. And I was like, you know what, guys, if it comes out bad, we're just going to eat whatever. I'll admit to messing up. And I think that's not easy as parents because one of the things that you feel like this, like the kids look up to you. And when people look up to you, you feel like that means that you're almost infallible. And in this article, it really goes into saying like, no, that's completely the opposite. Your kids have to learn. They're learning mostly by watching you and seeing how you react to things, not like the things that you tell them, admitting fault or showing when you're wrong.
Yeah, there's one time where I actually got so angry with Taylor and my wife, and I got so angry with Lucas that I actually blew up on both of them. And I was just reflecting on like what I said and why I was angry. And then, you know, when I got home, I sat them at the table, both of them. And I said, listen, and I looked at Lucas and I told him, you know, it's okay to get angry. People get angry. You're going to run into a lot of people who may blow up on you, freak out, but it takes a real man to admit when he's wrong. And I said, I need to apologize both to you and your mother because I should have never screamed at you guys that way or got angry with you that way. And, you know, and I hope he really took that in as a lesson. I think he did, you know, because I admitted to him that I was wrong. I mean, I wasn't happy with their decisions and I stated that, but I should have never acted that way towards them. And I wanted him to realize that, you know?
That's pretty smart. I think it's easy. And I like the way that you described that too about like, it takes a real man, because like in the context outside of like this conversation, I feel like that's like completely the wrong message that you need to say to people. But like admitting, setting your child back on forth and saying it takes a real man is like, this is what you should be. Not like
Right.
Real men don't cry, boy. You know, this
Right.
is like, you know, this is a good way to kind of like tap into that.
Yeah, because again, real quick, his you know, he's going to run into so many different perceptions and ideas in school and friends and other people's fathers. But I want him to know that his father is teaching him, hey, it's okay to admit you're wrong and to say you're sorry and to admit when you messed up. So
I think that's why the article was trying to, you know, because they were interviewing Dr. Shelley Flace. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. And the book that she wrote is Nurturing Boys to Be Better Men, Gender Equality Starts at Home. And just to your point, Mike Levine, is that what she's saying is that she doesn't want her boys to be raised closed off. And if you guys are modeling, or even the moms are modeling, the behavior of like sharing emotions, saying when emotion is the right way to express it or the wrong way perhaps, and owning a time that you've messed up, I think that's showing emotional intelligence to our children.
That's pretty good.
Particularly boys when they're being raised in a society at times. I think things are developing now, but like, you know, they're still being raised in a time where, you know, boys will be boys, men shouldn't cry, you know, and we're trying to get a little better as a society, I think, with that. But, you know, there's still conflicting ideals.
I think that like with a lot of these things too, Sarah, that you brought up, I feel like it's weird because in some ways, like we try, you know, there's like a joke obviously about like, you know, about just take that pain and anger and you shove it down to the bottom of your stomach like your dad did before you. And like the idea is that like some of the things that, you know, we talk about with our own kids, I feel like some of those conversations are for the four walls of your house. And like there's conversations you have that are a little deeper or modeling that happens when you're not in public and you're not like around other people to hear you having these conversations. And I think it's okay, especially when you don't have an audience, to show vulnerability and to do these things with your kids. One thing that I think is tricky, and maybe you guys could speak to this too, is sometimes like when a moment does occur, because everybody's kids are different. Sometimes like you have these moments where like you're at the dinner table and like, you know, you're all there. And then something comes up and you're like, oh, man, like one kid doesn't take it the same way as the other kid. And you're trying to like, separate. And I feel like sometimes like you can't say, we're going to talk about this later, because then you don't, you know, and it's weird because like inevitably that's what families are, right? You see all the messy stuff for everybody, but it's hard because like you are almost trying to deal with like a moment with like maybe your older one and then your middle one sitting there, your younger one's just like listening, and you're kind of trying to like not exclude them from the conversation, but like put things in terms that maybe they would understand and be like, you know, look, he's upset. Yeah, I know you're not, but like stuff like this does happen, and we have to be, we have to be open to how he's feeling right now. And if he's upset, like, you know, he's rightfully so. And maybe you're not in the moment, maybe you don't get this, but you know, don't take away from the fact of how your brother's feeling right now or something like that. Because it's hard, because sometimes you want to be like, all right, you two leave the table, you stay, but you can't do that, you know? Do you have moments like that with your own kids? Like when you're like, you deal with a situation and you're like, this is not really for everyone, but it kind of is because we're all here.
I kind of embrace that. Whenever one has a situation, I have everybody at the table, because I remember as a middle child, you know, I kind of learned from my brothers, being in between. I learned from my older brother. I learned from my younger brother. It was kind of like, everybody hates the middle child syndrome, but it's actually like, I think, one of the best syndromes. Not only that, I kind of call it like the family council. Like, I want my 5 members in this household to know that you can go to anybody. You could go to your brother, you could go to your sister, you could go to your mother, you could go to your father, and that's what we are here for. We're here to support, to love, to back you up, to help you with whatever you need. And when one of us has a problem, we all got a problem, and we need to help each other figure it out, And that came through with Lucas and his bullying incident in 4th grade. When he first started the 4th grade, he didn't know how to handle this kid, and we were talking at dinner. Hayden was there, Elliot was there. We're all kind of giving advice, and and then he wound up, figuring it out and using the advice that we gave him at that table. As far as making sure the younger ones understand it, that's difficult. I kind of just, it is what it is. It's reality, and they just kind of take it in and process it the way they are. But yeah, so in the beginning of 4th grade for Lucas, he wound up, he came home one day. We were all, Taylor had made dinner. We sat at the table, Elliot, me, Hayden, and everybody, and he just started crying. He was having a tough time with 4th grade. The work was hard. His best friend wasn't in the class, and whatever other issues, but most importantly, he had this one kid who was just like bothering him. And then we just started going over like, how can we handle the bullying issue? Did you tell the teacher? He's like, Dad, I told the teacher. I was like, okay, well, did you tell him to stop? It's like, yeah, I told him to stop. And I'm like, all right, we gotta come up with a list of rules of what to do. So the first thing is you tell the guy to stop. He doesn't stop, no problem. Move away from him. Can you move away from him? You can't move away from him, no problem. Tell the teacher. Okay. And even after the teacher doesn't do anything, all of us at the table came up with make a scene.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's make a scene? And he's like, well, and I told him, when you're in the hallway and this kid's bothering you, just start screaming, stop bothering me. What are you doing? Leave me alone. And I can 100% assure you, some teacher will come running over. Everybody will look at him. Sort of that embarrassment kind of gets now turned on him, because everybody's now looking at him like, why are you bothering Lucas? What are you doing to him? And sure enough, like the next day he goes in, he makes a scene, and it just so happened my wife had gotten off the phone with the teacher, because we were, in the background, we were just like making her aware of the situation. And she ran in the hallway, and he just got in trouble because of the scene of everybody saw what he was doing. Lucas made a scene. Step number 4.
That's some solid advice right there, by the way.
Yeah.
I love that you call it
really
make
cool.
a scene.
Thanks.
That's basically what we told Julian. He too was having an issue with another boy. And we told him, like, you could say to him, like, why are you doing that? Leave me alone. Why did you just call me that? And just kind of say it really loud so the teacher can hear, or the lunch monitor, or someone else can, Another thing that taught Julian too was to also like ask a question back, like, why are you saying that? Why did you say, like, just to question someone, like, are you okay? Because sometimes kids don't realize for him to say, like, don't do that again. Don't say that again. I don't like that joke. I don't like when you touch me like that. Because it just points out the bad behavior. And then some kids, they don't realize, like, they think they're having fun, or they think you're in on the joke, or they're just being plain mean. And they just need to be pointed out. And it's so hard to have your child try to model this behavior, because not every parent tells their child to do that. Like, for example, when Julian was dealing with this one boy, this was in kindergarten. And so the mom was like, oh, I heard that, my child's making fun of your child. I don't like that. You tell Julian that when he sees so-and-so, to make fun of him, to make fun of his glasses and stuff like that. And I said, oh, no, That's not.
I love how she told you what to do with
I
your
was like,
child. You tell Julian.
That's not how.
Or
I was like, I said to her, I said, well, that's not how we're trying to raise Julian. But I would appreciate if you tell your child to stop making fun of him, because it's hurting his feelings.
Yeah.
So she's like, okay. She didn't really like that idea.
she's like, wait, somebody told me how to be a parent. I think that's part of like this whole problem that I think a lot of people are facing now is that parents are trying to be the friends of their children instead of parents of their children. And you're going to run across kids that think they're macho, think they're like this or that, and they could act a certain way. And I don't think that it's the best advice anymore for us as parents to tell our kids like, oh, a bully just feels like they're, they have low confidence, so they act this way. You're almost like saying to your kid, like, well, we can't control it. They're going to act mean to you and you're just going to deal with it. That's not a solution.
Correct.
That doesn't solve it. It's almost the equivalent of saying like, oh, a boy likes a girl because he's like poking her or making her feel bad. It's stupidity. That's not anything. That's useless. And I love Mike and Sarah's advice because that is solid advice in the moment. You're getting picked on, no one's doing anything about it. Make it stop in a way that it will definitely stop, and
it brings attention
Exactly.
to everyone,
Your kids come to you for like, hey, dad, mom, I want you to make this stop because this is bothering me every day. And like, you can't be there for them. You got to teach them on how to handle their situations. And you just hope that they're able to get through it. There's that fear that, I remember the next day after we had the conversation, I'm like looking at the clock. I'm like, oh my God, is this kid bullying him? Is he going to do the 4 choices that I told him? And I'm like,
one's like writing on his hand and pen,
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Step
yeah.
one.
And I'm like, and you're just hoping and praying that everything comes out all right for them and that he's able to persevere.
Just one more thing real fast, because you brought it up. I think that is probably wise to just to acknowledge this, because we, the 3 of us do have kids that are a little bit older after having some of these experiences. Going over the teacher isn't always the best idea. So step 1, I think, would definitely be to reach out to the teacher before you go hot and heavy and hit the principal right away. Obviously, if it's a bus issue, you could call the school, call the principal, talk to the bus driver. Definitely talk to the bus driver, because they don't want to be caught, not knowing what's going on. And sometimes if the adult is a problem, that's a different story entirely. But it's good to get, all eyes and stuff. These days, which is pretty wild too, because our son, Ethan, had an issue on the bus with the kid, and was picking and fooling around with a lot of kids and banging them and throwing them on the floor. The first thing the bus driver did and the principal, they went back and they reviewed the tapes. Because they're now the bus company looks at the videos. They go back. They're like, we're going to need about 48 hours.
wow.
And they review the tapes. And it's almost like CSI or something like that. Like you feel like you're like, it's like a crime investigation, But it's sometimes these things take time. And as a parent, all you want is answers like stat. It's like 4 o'clock, school's over. Like, what is going on? Right?
No, I said that's the tough part is like is waiting for the answer, especially dealing with your child, especially dealing with a boy, because you're like, when will this might possibly turn physical, And
I think a thing too is that, whether it's boys or girls or indifferent, one of the things that I think that we found, and I'm sure very many parents find, is like when you raise your kids, they're not being brought up the same way as other kids on the block. Everybody's raising their kids differently. And one of the things that I think that is powerful, they mentioned in this article, is bringing up overheard praise. So this is different. So telling your kids specifically to them that, hey, you did a wonderful job. That's great. They sometimes tune that out after a while. But one of the things that this sounds like it's unrelated, but I promise you it is. We had a birthday party for Jacob years ago at this movie theater. So one of the movie theaters close by in town allows you to book the entire theater. It's kind of a great deal. And then you pick a movie. The whole theater's yours. You have 30 kids. You pay a set price. The parents say you spend a little bit more money. So anyway, long story short, whatever it was like Toy Story 4. Now I'm really dated because this was a while ago. And I remember at the time, the movie hasn't started yet. And I'm watching and I see like there's boys in his class, and I'm like, they're like climbing and jumping over the seats from row to row, and I'm like ready to come unglued. I'm like, what is going on? And like I'm looking around, like there's parents are like, what, you wanna get involved? Because I will. And then it's like, you know, sometimes you'll have like a parent will pick up 2 of the boys and carpool, and it's like, what is going on? And I'm sitting there, and I remember distinctly talking. So when you have parties like this, usually they have like a person that works the party, and then they come into the room, they have the popcorn, they're whatever. So I remember specifically saying to, you know, the woman that was at the party working it, and I tipped her extra because I felt so bad at this ridiculousness. Like how I was so upset and bothered by the way the other boys were acting. And then I'm so proud of my son because he didn't get involved in that, but that doesn't take away from how some of the boys were acting. And I remember seeing him after. He was so happy, like when he heard me talking about him, but not to him directly. And I think that there's something to be said about when kids hear you talking about them, they get like a little bit like, ooh, you know, they like to hear what you're saying about them. Cause there's definitely a difference when you say to them. They almost think that when you talk about them to other people that you spin the story in a much different way, or that you say things differently. So sometimes they'll overhear you talking about them. And if you are talking about things that they did and that they should be proud of, I think it really hits them in a different way.
Luckily, you know, I talk to my kids about those situations, but other parents don't, and you know, they allow their kids to do these things.
It's brutal. I despise situations like that because you're like, you weren't raised to do that, and I'm like, you know, saying like, I'm like, let me march my butt over and speaking of full volume, like, all right, cool, everybody's in a seat, fantastic, we're gonna sit in those seats, 2 cheeks in a seat, baby. No, but it's crazy because like, you know, you got like, you know, kids.
I love it.
That's definitely gonna be an AI poster.
I feel like sometimes a little sarcasm with humor, you know, it needs to be done. It's crazy. But I feel like a lot of it too is like they pick up on your general, you know, they pick up on your demeanor in situations like that. And I think like my older son, I feel like he shies away from like crazy acting kids, which are mostly boys, because of that, you know, because maybe he sees like how I react, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me right now. But like, you know, I think he just likes quieter, nicer kids, and it's just in general. So, you know, some boys are a little bit more quiet, a little shy, a little, like, you know, more calm. He hangs with mostly girls, and it's my older guy, and that's just like how he's grown to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally understandable.
It's the look. It's the look that all the parents give. Yeah. I remember being younger, and my mom gave me the look when I was acting up, and I was like, "Oh no, I messed up." And then as soon as we got home, I was just gonna say
that. You know what? It's funny you mention that because like there's different versions of this. There's like when you're home and they mess up, or there's like when you're out and then you give them the look, and then they know they have to just wait now until they get into the car or home until you discuss this.
Exactly.
My wife gives me that look too.
The look.
Let's see. Another thing. Let's see. Is in the article. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So in the article, one of the things that really stood out, and I think that we've brought this up multiple times, and I feel like when we bring this up, it's almost a reminder to ourselves. It's about being present in the moment, and it was kind of a combo thing. It was being present in the moment, talking to them, and don't just fill it up with tasks. Like Sarah, we were talking about before the show started, just like what you were saying, like how little time you have with your kids, like in general after school, right?
Yep. Yeah, and then like
imagine if you're just like, yep.
Listen, yep, sure, ditto. So when you think about it, you get your child back from school, and it's like 4:00, let's say. Then everything happens in between the scheduling, the dinner, the whatever, the homework. You really don't have that much time with them. So what they're trying to say is that, I think especially for boys, like kind of going back to the chores and allowance thing, that's where things get complicated. You want them to have some sort of chore or some sort of responsibility outside doing their homework. But you don't want to fill it up with every second of, did you do this? Did you do that? Why isn't that done? I told you this again. Because you're not allowing for like real conversations, you know? So like, I think one of the things I like to do with Julian when he gets home is that he knows that he's allowed to have like a little bit of downtime, get himself together, and then get back to doing schoolwork. You know, sometimes I tell him to come in the kitchen, do your homework while I am cooking, you know? And that's where we kind of chit chat sometimes, you know? Or if I'm doing an errand, I'm like, come in the car. Let's, you know, like, you want to keep mom company? And then, you know, conversations happen.
You know, what I've also been noticing now, and maybe you guys would know better, is because, you know, your kids are a little bit older than mine, But as Lucas gets older, and he's in preteen stage, he's 10 years old. It's like now there's this independence that is he wants to have. He wants to like kind of be in his room a lot, and I'm kind of forcing him out of his room more. So I don't know. Maybe with older boys, do you guys see that? In your older boys where they want to kind of be more by themselves?
I feel like they do, but I feel like I kind of look at the room as like you're on vacation and like the room is the least amount of space you should be spending your time in. I don't really want them. Like I would be rather that they go to another room in the house and be on a couch doing something than being in their room by themselves,
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm going in their bed and under their blankets. I'm like, what do you? It looks like they're depressed or something. I kind of want them to like, be on the bed, like sit, into some sunlight.
Well, Julian likes to play with his guys, like on the, video games and stuff like that. So, but sometimes I'm like, you got to get out, dude, because one, you're destroying your room because like you're just doing dumb stuff in there, and then two, it's like, hello, I haven't seen you, like get your butt down here. But they also said like meet your kid halfway at the same time. Like if your kid is passionate about something, they said to like join them. It's like Julie and I, we done Legos together. We play video games. Gene is a big sports dude, and like everyone kept saying to him, like when we knew we were having a boy, like, oh, he's gonna love sports. He's gonna get like all the sports and the football and the basketball. And Gene always was like, no, man, like whatever he's into, I'm gonna follow whatever he does. So Julian is a Marvel, DC kind of dude, and Gene is not that. He was not into any of that. Not that he didn't like them, he just wasn't into it. That wasn't his thing. And like Julian has taught him everything about the metaverse, everything he ever needs to know about stuff. And Gene always makes sure he takes him to like the newest movie that's out and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So I think like that's something that, and like now Julian's a little bit more into sports, like watching it, and like Gene always tries to include him. Like there's like a little fancy football league that they do together where Julian like does the picks and stuff. I think he's also fallen off the wagon there too. And Gene's like, dude, like you left me behind in this fantasy league, like. But like he tries to get him involved like with his interests and also involved in Julian's interests. So like I think that's good, and I think it's hard sometimes, because you want them to kind of going back to like, we're talking about basketball and wanting to play like different sports. Like you want your kids to like the same things you like, but they also got to be their own kid. Their own person.
I like what you brought up about Gene kind of like every so often touching base and asking him if he wants to be part of his hobby, because like it's easy to, I think it's easy as a parent to like almost like let the pendulum swing too far in one direction. Where you're always trying to jump in and be there for your kid's hobby, which you should be, but then like it can't be like a thing where they don't learn how to share, and then it's good for them to like not do a hobby they enjoy and join in on maybe the other sibling's hobby, or jump in with you if you're doing something, or like go to a basketball game if you don't like basketball, just to be there and be present and maybe enjoy it in some way. Just before the show, Ethan has gotten all into Dungeons and Dragons, and he is he's doing like the out school, like basically it's like you can sign for a class and something will go on like once a week. So he does this out school Dungeons and Dragons thing, and he was like creating his own campaign, and we sat down. So Noah was watching a TV show in the back. He's watching lots of episodes of Bluey, and Jacob, Ethan, myself, and my wife are sitting down to try to like do this campaign where Ethan's a dungeon master. And Jacob is like losing his freaking mind. He's so frustrated with Ethan's rules. He's getting upset. He's like, you're not listening to me.
Yep.
What's in the room? And Ethan's like, you have to look in the room first. Jacob's like, what's in the room? And I'm like, you can't find out what's in the room. Do you look in the room? And it was like just this, you could see it's just a power battle. And I kind of like, initially my wife and I were like, should we just let Jacob not be part of this? And we're like, you know what? This is dumb, because he constantly is going to Jacob's like music and taekwondo and everything else. I'm like, you know what? Jacob could sit his butt down and he could sit there for Ethan's Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
He could roll some dice and he can just be there whether he likes it or not. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to say we support each other. This is those moments that it's a hobby that you don't like, but we're going to support your brother, meaning you are going to grab your character sheet. You're going to play your character. You're going to play your paladin, and you're going to sit with your dice. And we did it. And we had to set a certain amount of time because we couldn't play for hours. We did like an hour, a 45-minute session. It was fine. Right. We know their breaking point. But I think that was like a moment where like my gut instinct told me to stop. And my wife and I looked at each other like, not this time. I think maybe that was the right move.
I think so too. That sounds good.
with Lucas. He, I thought when he was going to be a avid Star Wars lover like me, and he likes it, but he's, the way he loves Godzilla is the way I love Star Wars. And I like Godzilla, but I'm not in love with Godzilla like he is,
The relationship would never work.
Yeah, exactly. But what's cool is we both be a part of each other. Like, I'll sit and watch Godzilla movies with him when the new Godzilla movies come out. And again, it's cool. I like it, but I love Star Wars, and he'll sit and watch like the new Star Wars content that comes out on Disney, and we'll be there for each other in our interests, even though we're not. We don't feel the same way about them.
I feel that way too, especially like with interests and like movie and TV, that sort of thing. It's really easy to be like, these are the things I like. This is what I want to watch. That's the end of it. But like, I've had opportunities where like, for example, like Avatar: The Last Airbender is coming out this week. And Ethan wanted to watch Avatar, the cartoon originally. And I remember seeing it like once years before, and I'm like, this is like the stupidest childhood show. I do not want to watch this. And I sat down with him, and I got past the first 20 minutes of the episode after realizing that I was a moron, and this was the best show I've ever seen. It's so good. And we watched it, and Ethan and I watched this together, and I'm so glad that he sat down to watch this and asked me to watch it with him because, well, number one, it turned to be excellent. But number two, that I didn't have to stick with what I wanted, and I just sat with him and did what he wanted, and we loved it together, and we experienced it together. And like, there's something to be said about like, you as a parent, like, it's easy to become the tour guide all the time. We're like, oh, I like this when I was younger, you might like it, or like you show them something that you experienced once before. But it's a whole lot cooler to be in the ride together and enjoy it together for the first time through a fresh set of eyes, and it's fun, and I love that. Jacob shows me different games, and Ethan shows me, different TV shows that he wants to do. And, Noah puts on different episodes of Bluey, I guess. But there's something to be said about it, and it's just fun, or like just get into the moment. One thing that I think we should talk about too is defending yourself and martial arts and fighting and standing up for yourself. And that seems like it seems to go in tandem with raising boys. One thing that I think we were, at one point, I think Jacob was like trying to figure out like emotions and different kids and like standing up for himself, because he would be the kind of kid that kind of like dropped his eyes and avoid eye contact in a moment of confrontation. I think that almost made situations worse for him because he didn't like come across as confident. And I think that in the time we were like, you know what, maybe this kid should do something about it. And we never were planning on doing like Taekwondo or martial arts until when he was younger. He had physical therapy that he needed just because he had kind of a weaker lower core. And one of the things that they said is sign up for swimming or try martial arts. And we did swimming, and it didn't really help. I really honestly believe that would build strength in him. And it didn't do a whole lot for us. So we're like, let's just try the martial arts thing. And we went to Taekwondo, and the first day we went, he cried and almost quit. And then he saw one of his friends from school, this kid Logan, who's a great kid. He's like, oh, hey, Jacob, you trying this? He's like, oh, I'm currently this belt. I'm doing this. And that moment, like, boom, he was into it. And, the Taekwondo wasn't like, it's not like Karate Kid where he's like fighting, 6 guys dressed like skeletons. He is, he's learning confidence. And I think it's like something to be said about that level of confidence I've seen in my kid. And this hasn't necessarily been dealing with conflict, but I do see that confidence is incredibly important in young boys. And one of the things that I think include that is with any sort of activity, it could be soccer, basketball, art, doesn't matter, having an opportunity where you are working with younger kids and they're looking up to you and you're doing some degree of coaching or teaching. And I think that for my older guy, I think it's like night and day. I watch him and I'm like, wow, this kid's gotten a little bit more confident. He's showing kids how to do stuff. And that part of the martial arts, I think, was really beneficial. And, it depends. My kids are different. My middle guy is like, he wants to get his black belt and be done with it. Jacob is somewhere in between his first and second dan for his black belt. And, Noah's like, I want to do soccer. So, everyone's different, but, I think like there's something there. And, I think I know, Mike, your guy's done some, Aikido or something like that. Right. And then Julian's done some stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's done Kempo.
I just made up a different martial arts. I'm sorry.
So, no, but Lucas again wasn't really into sports, you know, and we were just struggling with finding him something to do. And actually, like Logan with Jacob, Lucas had a friend named Gina, or still has a friend named Gina, and she had said, "Oh, why don't you try Kempo with me?" And we wound up going, and he loved it the first time, and it's been his go-to thing every, you know, he like looks to go to his practice. And to speak to what you were saying, we like all the things that it teaches rather than just like conflict resolution. It teaches self-discipline, confidence, respect, you know, all those things that you kind of want your kids to be raised on and grow up knowing. You know, I'm not looking for my son to be the next like best fighter. And then you'll see like a lot of people kind of bash the martial arts because like it's not realistic in a real fight, or they wouldn't know what to do because it's not like MMA or something different. But there's more to it than just fighting, and that's what I like. I think it
also goes to like when you're like, because our dojang is in like a shopping center. So like when you're there, and sometimes occasionally you'll see like kids, like teenagers will drive by on their bicycles, or bicycles, like lady, they drive their bikes, or like they, you know, or they're like making comments or noises. The sensei will go outside. I'm like, you guys want to come inside? And it was like, he's like, and then they'll come back. He's like, you know, you see those guys making fun of it? How many of those kids are in here doing? How many kids in your class are doing this? And and then the kids are like, oh, like none. They're like, none? How about you? I was like, oh, one. You know, and it's like that moment where you're like, you know, people talk a big game and they cover up their emotions sometimes by acting a certain way. And I think it's kind of important for kids to realize that. One of the things that is beneficial as a parent, if you are thinking of just kind of like checking out any sort of martial arts, is maybe you could sit back and like go to one class for free, whatever it is. Sit back and watch the discipline and how the kids act towards each other, because I feel like it's not a good situation unless the kids are like being respectful to one another. One of the things early on that we liked about this dojang was that when the kids would run for warm up, you weren't allowed to lap or pass another kid. And I think that was super, super duper important, because like if you can't pass another kid, you're supposed to run a certain way, like not like take shortcuts. And if somebody falls, you stop and you help them up. Like those are the 3 rules. And just the idea that you're not competing, but you're working together and you're not passing, that to me, I was like, okay, there's something good here. You know, this is a good situation. And kind of like tying into maybe like, you know, defending yourself and martial arts and all this stuff. I think that does lead to a small conversation about emotion. And especially, Mike, you brought it up about like younger, when you're, you know, you have a son, he's reaching a certain age. Listen, let me tell you a little story. When boys hit like 9 or 10 years old, their little tween emotions are like cranked up to 11, and it is insane. Like burst out of crying for no reasons and like frustration. And I think that in this article too, they pointed out how like when there's anger is rarely the real emotion. It's usually they're sad or they're bummed out or they're frustrated, but the anger isn't really how they're feeling. And it's hard, but sometimes you got to tap into what are the things that's really bothering them. And if they're 9 and 10, there's nothing you can do because they're insane. But there's something to be said about. Did you notice that with Julian? Like, is it like all of a sudden you're like, what is happening to my child right now?
Right, he's usually so sweet and gentle, and sometimes he gets like angry, or he'll come downstairs. He's like, "Wow," and I'm like, "What's the matter?" He's like, "So and so said something," you know, like over like the
like
console,
chat, whatever.
like the chat or whatever, you know, or he made fun of me for saying something like that or doing something, and usually it's always around a video game at some point, you know, for the most part, you know. Because Julian's like finding like a nice group of guys and girls that he hangs out with, and you know, but like they get like angry. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like, what's going on, you know? But yeah, definitely the anger is there, you know, at times.
Yeah, I see Lucas a lot now with this kind of like attitude, rolling the eyes, and kind of like it's starting. And you know, we've been talking about it, and we've been working it out, but you know, I noticed that he was angry about certain things, like, and he didn't know how to express them. And when we talked about it, this is why I reassured him. I'm like, this is why, we're here for you. This is why we have the family council. You talk to us about these things. And I think it's just important to make sure that you're not only your sons, but your kids know that they could always go to you for anything, whatever it is. And they're not going to be looked at in any different way, because actually what he was in he got put in a group chat on that was to make fun of somebody, and he didn't even want to be a part of it. He didn't want to be a part of it. And he never answered anything in it. He never said anything in it, but he didn't know how to leave it. Because it was one of his closest friends, and then he didn't know how to leave the chat too because he didn't like it. So I said, this is why you have to talk to us. So we could help you through it. We could tell you what to do. We could help you make it so that you're not a part of this, because honestly, bud, you are a part of it because you're in the chat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though you didn't say anything, even though you didn't mention anything or make fun of anybody, you're still included in the group, So if these kids get in trouble, you could definitely get in trouble because you're part of the group too.
That definitely reminds, that makes me think of, we're going to be talking about that in a few weeks when it comes to internet safety and things about with your kids. I like that.
Yeah,
but speaking of, things getting misconstrued and lost in the translation, this week the question is, what gets misconstrued in your house in the translation from adult to kids? Does that happen when you're trying to teach them a lesson, you're trying to teach them how to raise them right? What gets misunderstood? We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions or comments for us, a topic or idea, or that question, you could get in touch with us here at 1. You could call and leave a message in our Hey Other Parents voicemail line, 559-LAY-KIDS or 559-537-5437. You could email the show at heyotherparents@gmail.com. Or 3, you could join us on Instagram or Blue Sky with the handle @otherparents. We'll try to give a date with show info, polls, more, and of course, our AI each week of ridiculous moments that we can't help but focus on as we go through the show. At this part of the show, we're going to get to our last segment, which of course is time to unplug. Because don't forget, you'll be a better we if you take care of me. But this week specifically for me, I have to tell you about a snack. Now, my friends, there's pirate's booty, and that, of course, is a wonderful opportunity to go to the high seas and get some doubloons. But when you are in Trader Joe's, occasionally you might walk down the snack aisle. And there in front of you, to the left-hand side on the lower shelf, maybe yours is different than mine, there is a certain type of pirate booty that is Cacio e Pepe puffs. Now, fancy you say? Of course it's fancy. Too much air in the bag? Probably. At $2.50 a bag, these are the most delightful little snacks. And on a total, without joking around, I actually have a slight allergy to soy. So when it comes to snacks that have like soy oil or things like that, I can't have it. This snack is soy free. This is like a peppery, kind of like a little cheesy. It's got a little kick to it. This is the perfect snack. So when I get home from work, I usually am cooking dinner and stuff, have a little snack while I'm cooking. And don't even ask. This is so strange. I started having these things a couple times a week. I dump the bag part in like a bowl, and I grab chopsticks because I'm insane. And I take chopsticks as I'm cooking dinner because if your hands are dirty, it's kind of fine because you're not touching the food. So I eat these little guys with chopsticks. So what? I go through an entire bag when I do it, but it's fine. So they are delightful. If you like something a little peppery, it's got a little kick to it. So cacio e pepe is like a dish from Italy where it's like, it's just basically pepper, Parmesan cheese, a little pasta water that they kind of put together, and it's like a really good dish. It's very simple, but it's like really, really famous. So they took that flavor and they kind of mixed it into a little snacky, chippy kind of thing, and they're so good. So if you're looking for something a little different, I thought I do a lot of TV, I do a lot of movies, try some different video games. Last week was an essay. This week is a snack with me, baby. Have a snack with me. Grab your chopsticks. Chopsticks are not optional in this case. Chopsticks and the cacio e pepe, and you enjoy yourself a little treat. Sarah D, what do you have there, DJ?
Good time. So when I'm not doing a podcast or cleaning the house, I am traveling back and forth from one place to the other, dropping children, doing errands. I actually like to. I know, apparently. I do actually like driving. I just like a little time for like myself, my thoughts. So if I'm not listening to an ebook, Spotify now has this DJ, and I think his name's like DJ X. He's like some AI dude. And
oh, really?
through your likes,
Wow.
like your like songs, he kind of starts compiling lists for you, and he's like, "Hey, Saturday vibes are usually this." I'm like, I really do listen to that song on a Saturday. And what I like about it is that like you can skip stuff. You're like, I'm not really in the mood to like turn up in the club in my car, and he's like, "Oh, you're not in the mood for that? Cool, I got something else for you."
club.
And I'm like, "Hey," I like
That's
that.
really
So
wild.
like I have to say the AI, they got it right. I like this guy. He's cool dude, cool DJ. You know.
And how do you?
little circle
It
that
just
talks
shows
to
up
you.
like it's
Wow.
on. Like when you're playing it, you'll see it somewhere like on the phone. Like it's just like a little icon or something.
Yeah, it's like there's like, so you have like the little tabs, like your like list, your whatever like gym workout list, whatever you set up, and then
I don't
the
have the gym workout
DJ
one.
shows up as your DJ. It literally just says DJ, has a little circle, you press on it, and then he goes off and does his thing.
So this week I have a show that you could have a snack with.
Look at us tying together.
It's Halo. It's Halo 2, and I'm sorry, it's Halo, but it's season 2. And I saw season 1, and if you're a big Halo fan like myself, most Halo fans were disappointed with season 1.
Yeah, Cortana wasn't doing it right.
Nah, it was just really it was bad. But I was like, all right, you know what? Another season coming out. Let's give it another try. And season 2 it started off strong, and then I'm like, okay, this is kind of just like the same as season 1, but I think it's kind of slowly building up. So I'm kind of interested to see how it ends off. And
Did they redeem themselves? Is it better?
the first episode was really cool. You know, there was a lot of Halo action in there, and then the rest has just been like, meh, meh.
Okay, so maybe sometimes certain things don't translate well to video games, right?
But yeah, that was my whole thing. I was like, I want to see how this translates from a video game to a show, and I think it's gonna get better. I'm hoping for it, and I wanted to mention it because if you liked Halo, it's got some really cool scenes on it, and it spoke to me for a little bit at least. So
You know what? It's worth trying, right? And I can tell you right now, I know what my
Right.
one more thing's gonna be for next week. It's definitely going to be Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it sounded like I was
There you
talking
go.
smack at it originally, and it deserves nothing but respect because the new live Avatar: The Last Airbender is happening on Thursday. So by the time you're listening to this, it will have already. I'll say Monday. Yeah, it'll already have aired, but we do this a couple days ahead of time. So, but I will definitely in the next one be talking about that. I think we're just about out of time on raising the boys. We talked about the sports. We talked about different emotions and personalities and how they're crazy when they're 9, and going to martial arts and playing basketball and football and soccer and doing fantasy football, doing Mortal Kombat, playing Lego with your children, and asking them what's going on in the car ride, because sometimes you just have to be in a good location to chat with your child. But we'd like to take a special moment to thank our listeners and supporters for donating to the show. If you want to help support the show so we can keep making episodes like this one, we have a link to donate in the show notes. If you don't have the means to do so, we totally get it, but we would always appreciate it if you tell your friends or family about our podcast so we can reach more parents on this wild parenting journey together. And if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we won't stop you. We can't wait to explore this parenting thing again next week on Hey the Parents, because it's the 3 of us and all of you. Don't forget to hug your kids and charge your Chromebooks. That's going to do it for me, for Mike, and for Sarah. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Peace.